Hello. I am ill. Oh my god. So I'm gonna have to blow my nose and stuff halfway through this a lot. And if my voice is sounding slightly different, that is why. Welcome back to Twilight Revisited. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. I doubt this episode will be as long as the last one. The research topic today is a continuation of the last one that we did. So it'll only be one big criticism, and then we'll also talk a little bit about we'll talk about the people who might criticize Twilight a little bit as well. But that's basically it. And then we'll also read the third chapter of Twilight. The thing, though, about this chapter, for the research topic to make sense to you, I will have to mix it up a little bit, to turn it around a little bit. So I'm going to actually read the third chapter first, and then we'll get into the research topic. Basically, the criticism that we are tackling today is surrounding Bella and Edward's relationship. Specifically, is it toxic? Is Edward a good partner? Is he a bad person? What is their dynamic? And is it good or is it bad? And should it exist? That's what we're talking about. We're also touching a little bit about we're touching on the not like other girls trope as well, and why some people, specifically women, might have a bit of a when it comes to Twilight. Do you like my little background setup? So from left to right, or for anyone who's tuning in audibly and not visually, I'm sitting on the living room couch right now. It is pink. We got this for free. Thank you. My flatmate and friend used to work in a warehouse type situation, and when they moved in there, lots of businesses had kind of just dumped furniture and stuff from their businesses before they went bankrupt there as a way to just get rid of stuff. And so we were allowed to take, whatever we wanted from there. So we have a desk in the bedroom that is also from that. We have a big shelving unit that you can see just in the corner. And then we have the two sofas that we have here. I have a knitted blanket, a throw, just over the back of the sofa as well. My mum actually knitted this for me in alpaca yarns. It's very, very, very soft. And it's my favorite blanket. I want to make one. They're very expensive. But it's very, nice and homely. And then obviously I'm decked out with pillows and a little sheep's rug as well that I'm sitting on. But when I'm talking about the background, I'm talking about the books that I've put on top of the back of the sofa to kind of illustrate where we are, put up some stuff. So the first book we have Midnight Sun. We've talked about Midnight Sun before. We also have the illustrated guide from Stephanie as well, just right next to it here. The next book is Life and Death, the gender-bent retelling of Twilight. Then we have Breaking Dawn, the fourth book, Eclipse, the third book, New Moon, the second book, and then we have, I don't know if you can see it, hold on, let me reorganize. Right at the back here, we have my newest editions, which is the complete illustrated movie companion to both Twilight, New Moon, and Eclipse. I'm looking for Breaking Dawn Part 1, and then actually there is no Breaking Dawn Part 2, which is so annoying. You cannot find this on the internet, not even in ebook form. They stopped producing the illustrated movie guide edition, whatever. They stopped producing it, and they decided not to release it for the last film, which is Hello. So frustrating. There is obviously a market for these books. People have been buying them, and I mean I've been going on Vinted and getting these for £2 each, which is great for me. Being a fan of something that had its downfall and then its renaissance about 5 years ago and has now died off again. And I believe, from my estimates, professional estimates as the Twilight historian, if you will, my estimates is that we're on the way back, baby. We're coming back. We're on the way back, absolutely. But the upside of being fan of something that isn't immediately like super popular anymore is that lots of people have like lots of artifacts and books and items and fan stuff that they're now just trying to get rid of. So I said I want to do a whole episode on like the merchandise that were either sold in addition and alongside the release of the films or the books even, or, you know, merchandise that has been created, or where, you know, the Twilight logo has just kind of been slapped on, stuff that has nothing to do with anything in the film. Like, I saw on Vinted this hairdryer that had the Twilight logo and nothing else. Like, there is at no point during any of the films where Bella is like blow drying her hair. So I don't like, it's capitalism, it's profit, it's, you know. Also, like, I saw blank notebooks that just had like the Twilight covers and they were blank inside and you can write in them, which is like, yeah, fine, but wouldn't I just write in a notebook that doesn't have Twilight? It doesn't matter. It does not matter. There's really only one thing to do, and that is to get started. Got my trusted book out again. I'm using the same copy as I always am using, the one where I've just taken lots and lots and lots of notes. Here we are, chapter 3, Phenomenon. When I opened my eyes in the morning, something was different. A fine layer of snow covered the yard, dusted the top of my truck, and whitened the road. But that wasn't the worst part. All the rain from yesterday had frozen solid, coating the needles on the trees in fantastic, gorgeous patterns and making the driveway a deadly ice slick. I wanted to include this because, like I've said before, I think the way Stephanie writes nature and descriptions of like things that have to do with nature and trees and the weather is just so atmospheric and beautiful. I think she does a really good job when it comes to like creating the setting and the feeling of the environment that we are in. I can feel the frost that's in the air. I can feel the cold air being sucked into my lungs. I can see like the frozen grass and the pine needles and everything. I can, you know, it's very atmospheric. She's very good at that. Bella is obviously quite nervous about the fact that everything is so icy. We've seen earlier when she's in gym class and stuff, she will punch someone in the face with a ball. Like, do not give her a tennis racket, you know what I mean? She's so fucking clumsy, and obviously ice makes all of that way worse. She's afraid of the roads on the way to school, she's afraid of the ice, like, whatever, but she's still getting ready really quickly. She's, like, throwing down cereal, like, drinking orange juice straight from the carton, because I felt excited to go to school, and that scared me. I knew it wasn't the stimulating learning environment I was anticipating, or even seeing my new set of friends. If I was being honest with myself, I knew I was eager to get to school because I would see Edward Cullen. And that was very, very stupid. I should be avoiding him entirely after my brainless and embarrassing babbling yesterday, and I was suspicious of him. Why should he lie about his eyes? She slips on the ice on the way to a truck. Driving to school, I distracted myself from my fear of falling and my unwanted speculations about Edward Cullen by thinking about Mike and Eric, and the obvious difference in how teenage boys responded to me here. This is very interesting. Pay attention, okay? Take some notes, class. It's time to take some notes. I was sure I looked exactly the same as I had in Phoenix. Maybe it was just that the boys back home had watched me pass slowly through all the awkward phases of adolescence and still thought of me that way. Perhaps it was because I was a novelty here, where novelties were few and far between. Possibly my crippling clumsiness was seen as endearing rather than pathetic, casting me as a damsel in distress. Whatever the reason, Mike's puppy dog behavior and Eric's apparent rivalry with him were disconcerting. I wasn't sure if I didn't prefer being ignored. Interesting. Interesting. She's very aware of it. Okay? This whole argument of like, she's so pretty and she doesn't even know it. I don't think it has anything to do with her being attractive. I mean, yeah, as we will see later on, she's very pretty. Like, she's within pretty privilege. She's what you would expect. But the way that the young boys in her class treat her has actually very little to do with the fact that she's so gorgeous and beautiful, and more to do with the fact that she's just seen as like a toy. And that's so sad. I think that's so sad. On the way to school, the truck doesn't slip on the ice once. Bella's like very nervous. She's driving the car, she's being very cautious, but the truck has absolutely zero problem in any of the turns and swings and whatever on the road. And when she climbs out of the car to, examine this in the parking lot when she gets to school, she discovers why. Charlie had gotten up who knows how early to put snow chains on my truck. My throat suddenly felt tight. I wasn't used to being taken care of, and Charlie's unspoken concern caught me by surprise. Oh, so cute. I was standing by the back corner of the truck, struggling to fight back the sudden wave of emotion the snow chains had brought on, when I heard an odd sound. It was a high-pitched screech, and it was fast becoming painfully loud. I looked up, startled. I saw several things simultaneously. First most important thing, Edward Cullen was standing 4 cars down from me, staring at me in horror. But more of immediate importance was the dark blue van that was skidding, tires locked and squealing against the brakes, spinning wildly across the ice of the parking lot. It was going to hit the back corner of my truck, and I was standing between them. I didn't even have time to close my eyes. Just before I heard the shattering crunch of the van folding around the back bed, something hit me, hard, but not from the direction I was expecting. My head cracked against the icy black top, and I felt something solid and cold pinning me to the ground. I was lying on the pavement behind the tan car I'd parked next to, but I still didn't have a chance to notice anything else because the van was still coming. It had curled gratingly around the end of the truck and, still spinning and sliding, was about to collide with me again. A low oath made me aware that someone was with me, and the voice was impossible not to recognize. 2 long white hands shot out protectively in front of me, and the van shuddered to a stop, a foot from my face, the large hands fitting providentially in a deep dent in the side of the van's body. Then his hands moved so fast they blurred. One was suddenly gripping under the body of the van, and something was dragging me, swinging my legs around like a rag doll's till they hit the tire of the tan car. A groaning metallic thud hurt my ear, and the van settled, glass popping onto the asphalt, exactly where, a second ago, my legs had been. It was absolutely silent for 1 long second before the screaming began. Obviously, no one can see anything that's happening. Like, Bella's on the ground and there are 2 trucks, like, in between. So people, from my perspective, if I was in this parking lot, I would think that I'd just witnessed a homicide. What on earth? She should be bleeding. She should be actually split in 2. I could hear Edward Cullen's low, frantic voice in my ear. Bella, are you alright? The fact that every time I speak in Edward's voice, I get so posh. And he's like from Chicago. He's from Chicago. I can't do a Chicago accent. Like, I actually have no idea how to do that. So I'm not going to attempt, but I don't know. But the way that Stephanie has written him, he just screams like posh boy to me. Sumi, are you all right? Bella, are you all right? Bella, are you all right? I'm fine. My voice sounded strange. I tried to sit up and realized he was holding me against the side of his body in an iron grasp. Ooh, sorry. I pull myself together. Sorry. I'll pull myself together. Be careful, he warned as I struggled. I think you hit your head pretty hard. I became aware of a throbbing ache centered above my left ear. Ow, I said, surprised. That's what I thought. His voice, amazingly, sounded like he was suppressing laughter. How? I trailed off, trying to clear my head, getting my bearings. How did you get over here so fast? I was standing right next to you, Bella, he said, his tone serious again. Liar! Liar! You're lying! Liar! It's absolutely chaos around them. This is where we get to know that the person who was driving the van, his name is Tyler, because people are like, oh my god, get Tyler out of the van! Get Tyler out of the van! He's in the van! Get Tyler out! Oh my god! I tried to get up, but Edward's cold hand pushed my shoulder down. Just stay put for now. But it's cold, I complained. It surprised me when he chuckled under his breath. There was an edge to the sound. You were over there, I remembered suddenly, and his chuckle stopped short. You were by your car. Bella, I was standing with you, and I pulled you out of the way. He unleashed the full devastating power of his eyes on me, as if trying to communicate something crucial. No, I set my jaw. The gold in his eyes blazed. Please, Bella. And then Bella makes him promise that he will tell her the truth and tell her everything. And they're both very angry. She goes, fine. And he goes, fine. And they're bickering. They're on the ground, basically like this close, kissing distance away from each other. He's basically on top of her. And they're bickering. They're having a bit of a fight. Anyway, the ambulance arrives. It took 6 EMTs and 2 teachers to shift the van far away enough from us to bring the stretchers in. Edward vehemently refused his, and I tried to do the same, but the traitor told him I'd hit my head and probably had a concussion. I almost died of humiliation when they put on the neck brace. And then Edward, of course, because he's the doctor's son or whatever, he gets to ride in the front of the ambulance while Bella's in the back. He just literally goes up and he sits in the front, and she has to be rolled in on the stretcher, neck brace and all, into this ambulance and the entire way to the hospital. Oh, by the way, Charlie has also arrived here and he's hysterical. So they're getting a police escort all the way to the hospital with the sirens blaring and everything. And she's like, I'm fucking fine. I'm fine, guys. Guys, can we calm down? I'm fine. But everyone's taking this very seriously. And she's in the back just fucking fuming. She's like, what the fuck? Why is he allowed to just do whatever he wants? And I have to be on this fucking stretcher. And I have to have this neck brace. And he was just as much in this accident as I was. Just because he's the doctor's son. Funny girl. Funny girl. But she's also thinking about, some couple of things, some logistics. Okay, she's scheming. She's trying to figure some stuff out. Because when they'd lifted me away from the car, I'd seen the deep dent in the tank house bumper, a very distinct dent that fit the contours of Edward's shoulders, as if he had braced himself against the car with enough force to damage the metal frame. And then there was his family, looking on from the distance, with expressions that ranged from disapproval to fury, but held no hint of concern for their brother's safety. That's curious. That's very curious. Naturally, the ambulance got a police escort to the county hospital. I felt ridiculous the whole time they were unloading me. What made it worse was that Edward simply glided through the hospital doors under his own power. I ground my teeth together. Bella gets checked out. Nothing seems to be immediately wrong with her, but they're like, oh my god, no, we need to do more checks. We're going to send a doctor soon. And then Tyler also gets rolled into this hospital room, and it's just the 2 of them. And Tyler is hurt, he's bleeding, so they're checking him out as well. And he's, apologizing so much to Bella. He's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I didn't even see you, blah, 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 I just lost control of the van. Bella, because she's been scheming, she goes, yeah, I mean, Edward was, he was stood right next to me, so lucky that he pulled me away. And Tyler goes, who? Who's Edward? And she's like, Edward Cullen, he was standing right next to me. And he's like, oh, Cullen, yeah, sorry, I didn't see him. I guess it all happened so fast. And she's, in her head, she goes, you didn't see him? Okay, so my memory is not deceiving me. I seem to be correct in this situation, so no, someone is lying to me. And then when it's just the 2 of them, and she closes her eyes for a second to just she hears this. Is she sleeping? A musical voice asked. Okay, can we just pause for just 1 second for me to ask this question? What does a musical voice mean? I always try to, replicate the way that they're saying these lines, just to get the feel of things. But what is a musical voice? And especially in an American accent that is quite straightforward. The British accent is very up and down. It has some musicality to it. You're kind of, going on a journey, whatever. But how I experienced the American accent is, like, quite straightforward. Is she sleeping? Is she sleeping? Is she sleeping? Is she sleeping? A musical voice asked. My eyes flew open. Edward was standing at the foot of my bed, smirking. I glared at him. It wasn't easy. It would have been more natural to ogle. Hey, Edward, I'm really sorry, Tyler began. Edward lifted a hand to stop him. No blood, no foul, he said. So, what's the verdict? He asked me. There's nothing wrong with me at all, but it won't let me go, I complained. How come you aren't strapped to a gurney like the rest of us? It's all about who you know, he answered. But don't worry, I came to spring you. Oh my god. Back and forth. I like it. They're being so, like, jokey, like buddy-buddy with each other. I like it. It's good dialogue. Then a doctor walked around the corner and my mouth fell open. He was young, he was blonde, and he was handsomer than any movie star I'd ever seen. He was pale, though, and tired-looking, with circles under his eyes. From Charlie's description, this had to be Edward's father. Note. In the illustrated guide, we get some background info on Carlisle, Edward's dad. And Carlisle is supposed to be 23. He was turned when he was 23. 23 years old. You have a 23-year-old doctor walking around these halls, being treated as a senior doctor. He's 2 years younger than me. Yes, I understand, 300 years, whatever. But, he looks like a 23-year-old. Get this child out of the hospital. Anyway, the doctor then checks Bella out. She says that she's fine. He says that she's fine. And then she says to the doctor, it was so lucky. It was absolutely so... Remember, she's scheming. It was so lucky that Edward was standing just right next to me. That could have gone so bad if he, didn't get to me in time. And then the doctor goes, yeah, that was lucky. As if he knows something. Is he in on it? What is he in on? What's happening? Something's going on. As soon as the doctor's back was turned, I moved to Edward's side. Can I talk to you for a minute? I hissed under my breath. He took a step back from me, his jaw suddenly clenched. Your father is waiting for you, he said through his teeth. I'd like to speak with you alone, if you don't mind. I pressed. And they do. They walk to a corner to have this little private conversation. Now, what do you want? He asked, sounding annoyed. His eyes were cold. Oh my god, the temperature in here has suddenly changed very drastically. His unfriendliness intimidated me. My words came out with less severity than I'd intended. You owe me an explanation, I reminded him. I saved your life. I don't owe you anything. I want to know the truth, I said. I want to know why I'm lying for you. What do you think happened? He snapped. All I know is that you were nowhere near me. Tyler didn't see you either, so don't tell me I hit my head too hard. That van was going to crush us both, and it didn't, and your hands left dents in the side of it, and you left a dent in the other car, and you're not hurt at all, and the van should have smashed my legs, but you were holding it up. I could hear how crazy it sounded, and I couldn't continue. I was so mad I could feel the tears coming. You think I lifted a van off you? His tone questioned my sanity, but it only made me more suspicious. It was like a perfectly delivered line by a skilled actor. I merely nodded once, jaw tight. Well, nobody will believe that, you know. His voice held an edge of derision now. Can you just thank me and get over it? Thank you, I waited, fuming and expectant. You're not going to let it go, are you? Nope. Well, in that case, I hope you enjoy disappointment. Why did you even bother? I asked frigidly. He paused, and for a brief moment his stunning face was unexpectedly vulnerable. I don't know, he whispered. And then he turned his back on me and walked away. That's the rest that she sees of him that day. She and Charlie exits the hospital, or into the hospital waiting room, and basically the entire school is there just waiting for her. There are 300 students. Why aren't they in class? If there was an accident that happened outside, there would absolutely be no people allowed to leave the school premises, at least not at my school, like if something happened like this, only the people involved in the accident, like maybe a support person of the person injured or whatever, would be able to leave the school, and the rest would just go back to class. But then when they get to the house, Charlie finally spoke. You need to call Renee. He hung his head, guilty. I was appalled. You told Mom? Sorry. I slammed the cruiser's door a little harder than necessary on my way out. My mum was in hysterics, of course, and she's begging her to go home. But Bella says, no, I'm fine. I don't want to leave Fox yet, blah, 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 blah. And she's going, why the fuck don't I want to leave Fox? I was consumed by the mystery Edward presented, and a little more obsessed with Edward himself. Stupid. I decided I might as well go to bed early that night. Charlie continued to watch me anxiously, and it was getting on my nerves. I stopped on my way to grab 3 Tylenol from the bathroom. They did help, and as the pain eased, I drifted to sleep. That was the first night I dreamt of Edward Cullen. And that's the end of the chapter. That took us, 20-something minutes to read? Slayed. Good for us. Okay, let's have a tiny little break before we get into the research question of this week. Just remember, we had to do it this way because what we will talk about has a lot to do with this chapter, specifically this chapter. And also a little bit about Midnight Sun, actually. So, let's have a break. Welcome back. Excuse me for having my big-ass tablet with me, as I've taken extensive notes for this episode and for the research topic. I wanted to touch upon the topic of not like other girls and the not like other girls phenomenon that has been happening like online since I would say, I don't know, ever since people have been gathering on forums like Reddit or, people started using the internet as a way of communicating with each other and like forming identity. That's an important part of this. Not like other girls is not just a state of mind, like it's a thing that you think of yourself that defines who you are as a person and like how you interact with media, how you interact with other people, what you feel about other people, how you categorize yourself within social settings. But before we jump into like the factualness of this, I wanted to very briefly talk about a thing that happened to me, or something that happened, a conversation I had with someone like a week ago, I think. I was at this workshop and just by chance, one of the exercises that we were set to do was to define or choose like a pop culture film or book and choose the main character in that series and kind of figure out what their wants and needs, what the super objectives of, the story was, if they achieve their objective or their wants, and if, like, what obstacles stand in their way, and if they achieve it, like, how do they achieve it, whatever. The partner I was doing this exercise with brought up Twilight, and I was like, oh my god, yes, let's talk about Twilight. I didn't even bring it up, guys. She brought up Twilight, and she was like, okay, yeah, let's look at the, Twilight and Bella as a character and like what she wants. And I was like, yes, of course, like you go ahead. Because whenever I'm talking about Twilight to people, I always get a bit like, they don't know how much stupid fucking knowledge I'm sitting on in my noggin. Okay? They have no idea. The fact that this series like basically consumes a lot of my waking hours. And so I don't want to like come off as like way too intense, way too quickly. So I didn't want to be like, yeah, this is exactly what I feel about Twilight. And this is exactly what I know about it. I didn't want to do that. So I was like, you go ahead. And she was like, yeah, okay. I think what Bella wants is to be immortal. And the way that she goes about that is that she uses everyone in the show or in the series, especially Edward and Jacob. She uses them, manipulates them in order to achieve that. And then, yeah, she achieves her goal by being immortal by the end of the series. Did we read 2 different things? Did we experience 2 different stories here? Because that's like literally not even... That's not even in... I was so shocked. I was like, okay, what do you mean by that? I was like, oh, okay, I disagree. I was like, that's not... because I don't often meet people who, well, first of all, care about Twilight enough to have a whole conversation about it. Second of all, dislike Bella to that extent, where they kind of walk into conversation about her and about the series with kind of the angle of dislike towards her, or distrust, I guess, like very distrustful of her as a character. And I was like, well, I disagree. I don't think Bella wants to be immortal. I don't think that's her goal in the series. I think she wants to be loved. She wants to love Edward forever, like as long as she's alive. And because he's alive forever, she wants to be like him. And so being immortal is a means of getting what she wants, which is to love and to be loved by Edward. But it's not her end goal. And I was like, why do you think that? Like, why do you think that she wants to be, like, immortal? And she goes, well, my favorite character is Jacob, and so I think the way that she treats Jacob is just so stupid, and she's so manipulative and, like, evil and annoying, and she doesn't deserve either of the boys, but she should be with Jacob, and she chooses wrong. She chooses Edward and not Jacob. You know, she's so manipulative and only wants to be immortal and uses both of them to get what she wants. And I was like, what is going on? And then I was like, your favorite character is Jacob? First of all, let's unpack this. Your favorite character is Jacob. Ever since I was young, have thought Jacob's supporters were really weird. Really weird. And I've not, until I was a grown person, I was in my grown age, that I understood why I thought that was so weird. As a young child, I was a Team Edward girly, okay? I've always been Team Edward. But the reason why I was Team Edward is because Bella chooses Edward. She chooses him. She loves him. There is no Team Jacob or Team Edward. It's Team Bella. You know what I mean? Like, it's children have a very black and white view of things and will kind of latch on to the either or choices of things in order to kind of understand the series or understand the story of what is happening. And so it's written in the way for children to be like, I'm on that side, or I'm on that side, or I'm on, you know. As adults, it's much more complicated than that. Like, it's not about, you know, whatever. But even as a child, I was like, well, Bedward. Oh, my God. Oh. Even as a child, I was like, well, there is no reason to, like, sit and wish and hope that Jacob would be the one for Bella and that Bella would choose him, because she doesn't. She doesn't choose him. She says outright, I don't love you as much. Yes, I might have feelings for you, but it will always be him. Sorry, like, if you make me choose, it won't be you. She says that several times. And so there is really no choice. And then I was speaking to my best friend about this, and she said, well, I think we have been experiencing this series a bit differently. Keep in mind, neither of us are, I would say, on the hetero side of things. Myself, I'm not. Like, I'm very much. That was the little gay hand, by the way, for everyone listening. How I understood it was like, oh, people are Team Edward or Team Jacob based on who they want Bella to be with. When in reality, a lot of people chose sides, Team Edward or Team Jacob, based on what character they were most attracted to, especially after the film started getting released. So it was basically, are you attracted to Robert Pattinson or Taylor Lautner the most? And I asked this girl I was talking to in this workshop, I was like, oh, but like, why is Jacob your favorite? And she was just like, well, I mean, he's the hottest one, like, he's the most attractive. And I was like, and she also said that, well, I mean, I haven't read the books. And I was like, okay. And then I was, well, still, Jacob is your favorite, you know. And then there was just like this throwaway comment of like, yeah, I mean, what film are we going to do then? And I was like, well, I mean, we're going to do the best one, obviously. And she was like, oh, which one do you think is the best one? And I was like, the first one, it's a cult classic. I mean, Catherine Hardwicke, female-led, female gaze, like, and she was like, oh, Eclipse is my favorite. And I was like, wait, Jacob is your favorite character and Eclipse is your favorite film? Girl. Oh my God. I don't trust people who have Jacob as their favorites out of the two, because I kind of, and especially if you're a girl, I go, are you an anti-feminist? Like, I don't understand. Like, Jacob is so lovely and wonderful in New Moon. I love him in New Moon. He's such a good friend. He's such, whatever. Until, of course, the whole transformation happens. But in Eclipse, he's just a fucking menace. And not in, like, the fun way of, like, oh my god, it's such a menace. No, I mean, like, he's so frustrating to read and to watch on film. He has no respect for Bella's boundaries. He has no respect for Bella's autonomy. He assaults her. So, like, she breaks her hand, punching him in the face. What? So I'm just like, if you still find him to be the most endearing, to be the most, whatever, the person that you're attracted to, I think you should go to therapy. And I, like, deeply, deeply mean that. Like, do you want to be hurt? Like, do you romanticize a partner that is so viciously possessive and dangerous? And I need to say this with, like, the strongest of the prefaces. I'm completely aware of the fact that we're talking about an indigenous man here. When we're talking about the fact that he's dangerous, or that he assaults her, that he's, like, typed as this predator, that's the way that Stephanie has decided to categorize him, which is harmful, really, really harmful. That should not have been written in. Like, again, we jump back to the last point of the last episode. You should definitely go and watch that. If you have not, you should listen to it, because I think I make some good points. We come back to what I was talking about earlier, which is the fact that your words have meaning. The way that you categorize your characters have meaning. You might believe that you're creating this world that is completely free of racism, but that doesn't exist, because the people who are consuming your work, they're not free of racism. Their biases are not non-existent. And so if you categorize basically one of the only indigenous people, the only people of color in this book, as, like, being really predatory and dangerous and, like, not nice, like, not knowing any boundaries, whatever, being really, like, on this white girl, like, that has meaning. That has subtext, a very loud subtext, definitely. If we just look aside from that, Jacob gets really, like, not nice and really annoying to deal with, and he becomes basically, like, one of those soft boys that, like, get really demanding around their, like, female friends, and, like, feel really entitled to her space and her body, and gets really surly about the fact that she's not attracted to them, or not attracted to him, doesn't want to go out with him or sleep with him, whatever. And I've seen a lot of comments from, like, just people in general who have such a problem with the way that Bella treats Jacob, like, keeps stringing him along and keeps, keeping him on the hook. And I'm just like, I don't think the friend zone really exists. I think you can show you're interested in someone, even if they are your friend, and they can turn you down. But there is no being stuck in the friend zone. I think you should just get over it. Get on with it. You know what I mean? Get on with it. If you don't want to suffer, say, hey, actually, as it stands right now, if you're not interested in me and I have this crush on you, it's actually really hard to be around you. So I know that's going to be really hard on me. It's going to be really hard on you. And I'm so sorry. But actually right now, I can't be friends with you. I need to have, just a long break from all that we are in order to get over you, so we can get back to being, like, just friends. I'm so sorry. And you have to set that boundary. Yeah, that's very easy for me to sit here and say, but, like, that's what I think about that. This conversation I had with this person, it just made it so clear to me that people who deeply dislike Bella, it might have something to do with the fact that they have Jacob as their favorite character and don't think that Bella treats him right. And so he has kind of excuses of his behavior. And I think it's because you're romanticizing him. So you need to find excuses for his behavior in order to be able to still find him likable and still find him attractive, essentially. It was just so interesting. And then, of course, like, I did change my mind. Like, when we were all going around, I was like, actually, I don't think Bella wants to be loved by Edward. I don't think that's her main goal in the series. I think her main goal is to belong, to find belonging. Because the thing about Bella is that she talks so much about the fact that she doesn't fit in anywhere. All of the people around her, all of her human friends, all, like, her mother, who she is the closest to in the world, like we heard in the first chapter, she feels so distant from all of them, like she's an alien walking among them. And it's only when she finds Edward and his world that she starts to actually, like, find herself in a way. Like, she has this feeling then of like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I've always supposed to get to this point and to get here, which is why it's so vital for me that I am changed, that I am, able to step into my role that I was supposed to have all along, like the whole like fate situation of the Mormon faith. Fate situation of the Mormon faith. Two different things. When she's choosing between Edward and Jacob, she's not really choosing between these two guys. She's choosing between the person that she's supposed to be and the person that she is. So the person that she's supposed to be is the human who falls in love with another, well-ish human person. And the person that she is, which is the vampire, the person who lives forever with Edward. And this is the fight. This is the obstacle. The love of her life doesn't want her to be or to step into the role that she feels like she has always meant to be. And I was just like, well, I mean, let's disagree. We can agree to disagree. Like, that's fine. So now, before my voice actually completely gives out, let's just get into like some facts that I've gathered for this session. Sit down, take some notes. So in order to understand what we're talking about in relation to Bella and not like other girls, okay, and the people who might have some criticisms within this, I think it all started with that like very famous meme that everyone has seen, basically, of what we would associate with like a bimbo. So like a woman with like really big blonde hair. She has a very short, like hyper feminine, tight pink dress on, high heels, like makeup in her hand, whatever. She's walking, and then she sees a book on the ground, and in the next frame, she leans down to pick up the book, but her hair is shorter, her dress is longer, her breasts are smaller, and her high heels are shorter again as well. She doesn't hold any makeup anymore. And she picks up the book, and suddenly her hair is like way shorter. She has trousers on. She has still, a top on, but she has kitten heels now, and her makeup isn't as like extreme. And then she like gets the book under her arm, and then she walks away, and now she has her brunette hair up in a ponytail. She's wearing jeans and a jumper, a backpack and sneakers, basically signifying that like she's now smart because she's picked up a book and she's now, worthy of intelligence, I guess. This is obviously deeply misogynistic, like extremely misogynistic, implying that women who dress hyper feminine or, engage in what we would associate with highly feminine activities such as makeup and fashion and hair are unintelligent and untalented and vapid and stupid, just like we talked about in the last episode. This meme has evolved and evolved and evolved, and my favorite evolution of the meme, I guess, is where there is an artist who's taken these two people, or the bimbo, I'm saying that in quotation marks. Bimbo has always been quite like it's been a very negatively termed, like it feels very negative and degrading. I think it's always been used in a degrading way towards women. So someone has taken the blonde woman and the brunette woman and kind of made them into two separate people instead of like from one perspective moving into the other. They've made them into two different characters, and they're now lesbians, and they're in love, and they are together, and it's so cute. That's my favorite like reimagination of that meme, because it takes it from being misogynistic into being like celebratory, you know what I mean? The bimbo reclamation, I know, I'm just making up words now, happened, I think, during 2020. We have several creators, especially on TikTok, that took the word bimbo and reclaimed it for themselves. So they started to very like vocally and openly and like loudly engaging in activities that we would see as like quite, I guess, hyper feminine or bimbo like. So lots of makeup, lots of like really out there fashion, like really interested in the hair, talking in a very specific way. And they reclaimed all of that and made the point of like, yeah, we are talented, we are capable, we are smart, we're intelligent, we can hold a conversation, we are political, and we're also hyper feminine, and we are bimbos. And I felt that was so empowering. Like, I thought that was so fun. I engage a lot in femininity myself, like especially when I'm just like having fun. And so I find the reclaiming of femininity quite empowering. And especially as a trans person myself, like, it's often because I'm transmasculine and I use he, they pronouns, whatever, I often feel like there is a very specific set of rules for transmasculine people. People who engage in like transmasculine and trans man things, both in like sexuality and gender and stuff, were very much expected to like bind and to be so like revolted essentially of our own bodies and our voices and the way that we engage in the world. We're supposed to have like such strong dysphoria of everyone and everything that we used to be. And for a lot of people, that is very true. A lot of us experience quite violent dysphoria, and like, I'm not saying that I don't. Like, I experience dysphoria, definitely. But there will always be like a core part of me that was a little girl. There will always be a core part of me that was a teenage girl with teenage girl interests. And I'm wearing makeup right now because I enjoy it. I think it's fun. I think it's a great way to express yourself. I live and breathe and exist in this body, and this body is the one that I have. And yeah, some days it's excruciating and very difficult, and then other days I want to show it off and I want to have fun with it, and I want to wear dresses and cute skirts and sing and talk loudly and, you know, just have fun with it. And I'm just existing. And so I really relate to like what we would see as traditional bimbos. When it comes to the not like other girls phenomenon, like, why does that happen? I personally believe, let me just read what I've written. I personally believe most teen girls go through a period of actively participating in girl-hating culture because we're experiencing the direct oppression from patriarchy for the first time as independent beings. Basically, when you move into puberty, I think things really start to change for you if you're experiencing the girl existence, I guess. Because previously, yes, of course, like, you've experienced being made fun of, you've experienced being sexualized perhaps, but it's really when you enter puberty that things really fucking take off. And as a way to protect yourself, perhaps, as a way to distance yourself from oppression, or say that I'm not one of those guys, I'm not one of those, like, you can make fun of them, you can oppress them, you can sexualize them, you can touch them, whatever. I'm one of you guys. I'm one of the guys, I'm one of the cool ones, I'm not one of them. Don't make fun of me, please, don't make fun of me, make fun of them. That has nothing to do with me. It's a protection tactic. And also, I think, because if all the representation we have are women being just like secondary, vapid, romantic interest leads, and they don't have much to add to the conversation, they don't lead much of the stories, we actually don't see any of the perspectives, like, fucking ever. All of it we see through the man's objective, like, the objectification of the man's eye. Also, the people who tell the stories are men, and therefore have very little interest in showing real, full characters that are women. We only see the bimbos, like non-existent people with no interests and no, you know, whatever. And we go, but I have interests. But I have feelings and desires. I'm a sexual being. I experience, you know, fear and anger. So I must not be like them. Like, I must be different. Like, if this is all I see, that means that all women are like this and all girls are like this. And I see it in the way that the girls in my year also interact. Like, they only talk about boys and makeup and each other. And I don't care about any of that. I want to talk about politics. I want to talk about video games. I want to talk about, you know, football. I'm not like them. I'm not like other girls. Do you see where I'm going with this? We have interests and thoughts and wants and needs and function not much differently than our male peers, but all we see through media, which, let's be real, we seek media out to learn social rules and contexts, to learn societal and social history, how we fit in with others and our interactions with others. Oh, looks like we might get a guest. Oh, Putin. Do you want to come and sit down? Do you have something to add to the conversation? Okay. Something else? No. Just gonna sit down. This is Junie, everyone. Say hello to Juniper. She's so cute. Anyway, where was I? If all we see through media... Are you gonna go and bite down on my iPad? Please don't do that. If all that we see through media are vapid, embarrassing, empty versions of ourselves, categorized and caricatured, and we think, if all representation is this, that must mean most girls are like this. Boy-obsessed, totally focused on their looks, unintelligent and uncultured, and have no interests except in being as pretty as possible. And I am not that. We also participate in patriarchy as a way to protect ourselves. If femininity is most dangerous, why would we align ourselves with it just to receive humiliation? It is also a very complex issue because you can look at it from the other direction of you can step into your femininity, you can step into the boy-obsessed, vapid existence of girlhood, whatever, as a way to protect yourself again, because there is strength in numbers. So if you are exactly like other girls, like it seems like there are only two choices to make. Either you are exactly like other girls in order to protect yourself, or you are not like other girls also in order to protect yourself. So it's really like a lose-lose situation. I think when we're talking about my own experience with the not being like other girls, I had a huge face that was not like other girls. Like I think when I turned 13, I started to feel really, really abnormal for my peers. I mean, obviously, and I have several diagnoses that can explain why that would be. I also was queer, but in a way that I didn't really understand. Like I always had a crush on like my male peers and my male friends, but in a way that felt distinctly queer and weird and like just not in like a girl boy way. I mean, we now know why. I felt so different from them, like everything, all of the stuff that I was interested in. I also started being on Tumblr at this time. I started thinking about social justice. I started to come across like severe societal problems like racism and patriarchy and white supremacy, capitalism. It was the first time I started thinking about that. I also started like reading more seriously. I have always been reading, but this time I started reading more like nonfiction and classics. Hello. Nonfiction, classics. Where are you going, girl? Just wanted to lead in a little bit differently. That's okay. So all of my female peers were interested in them working out. In my social circle, it was a lot about like how you were being perceived by other people, which is not ever, in that sense at least, like how skinny you are and how pretty you are and how, that has not really been something that I was very concerned with as a teenager or as a young person. Especially not being skinny, but I think that's because I already sit with the privilege of being thin. And so I didn't really understand that. And the way that they were like moving more towards kind of intricate social interactions rather than just the way that we had already been communicating with each other was very hard for me. I find it all very complex and difficult and tiring. And so I think I kind of retreated very much back into myself. And the way I experienced interaction with my male friends and my male peers seemed much less complex and much less complicated. It was very like straightforward. But then again, there was a very distinct difference between us as well. They weren't interested in the same things that I was interested in either. They very much, started talking about girls in a way that I didn't enjoy and like. And they started getting interested in films that I just wasn't interested in, like action films and thrillers and stuff. And I was still very much like obsessed with Hunger Games and Twilight and Harry Potter. I think I chose. I think I chose what kind of oppression I wanted to experience, or subconsciously wanted to experience, or what I could handle at the time. And so I chose to participate in patriarchy rather than be a victim of it, if you know what I mean. Even though in reality you are a victim of it, you will continue to be a victim of it, especially because you're not aware of what you are feeling. But I've altered my interests around 13 years old. Like, I stopped being a fan of One Direction, moved into being a fan of 5 Seconds of Summer, which I insisted was not a boy band, even though they were, for boys in a band. They were a band because they played their own instruments and wrote their own songs, which One Direction obviously did not do. I stopped reading Twilight and started reading Percy Jackson and The Maze Runner instead, because these were more, I guess, boy-focused accepted things. I also started hanging out a lot online, like a lot. And that really much shaped me into like the person that I am today as well. And it really took like all the way until my late teens to start to unpick all of this, to start to kind of pick apart what my preconceived notions of what a girl is, this like vapid, boy obsessed, thin obsessed, image obsessed, I guess, shell of a person, into realizing that girls are actually also just full functioning human beings that just they've taken a different path. I also realized that by resisting association to the girls around me, I was actually actively playing into the oppressive powers that were harming me. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes because I'm like quite articulate. And for what? Like, what was I resisting that for? Like, why was I playing into the oppressive powers? For validation? For protection? I wasn't getting any of that. I was actually just sitting there in suffering, in silence, and in isolation. So I actually started to actively participate in my girly interests. And now, even, like many, many years later, these girly interests are actually kind of a way to participate in revolution a little bit. Like, they feel like revolutionary acts in their own ways, because they kind of are. Like, you're doing all of this and liking all of this in spite of the knowledge that you will be ridiculed and humiliated. Like, I'm proudly a fan of Twilight and like proudly have very serious thoughts around this. And I will continue to have that because it's important to me. Thank you for listening to that rant. Got personal there. Let's talk about the final criticism that will round out these 2 episodes, okay? It's a big one. And it idolizes toxic relationships. I was watching a creator's video from a couple of years ago. This is a creator I really, really enjoy, okay? I'm not going to say their name because I didn't really enjoy the video that I was watching. I had quite a lot of thoughts around it, whatever. I really enjoyed this creator, and there are several videos that I've seen from them they've really changed my mind on things, and they're really, well thought out videos and often have perspectives on things that haven't really been brought to light. And so they're very interesting, and so I was excited to watch this because it was specifically about Twilight and about if the relationship between Bella and Edward is a toxic one. And I was like very excited to see some new perspectives, whatever. And then what I was watching actually, in fact, was just an ill-researched, not very well put together video that was kind of just speculation and opinion based on wrong facts. Just a bit like ill-advised. Like, I just didn't really enjoy it. I was like, well, if we had a conversation right now, I feel like I could really much pick all of your arguments apart. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Let's keep in mind, this video's statement was, Twilight is a thriller, not a romance. Which is, that doesn't state that it is good or bad, or, whatever. But the way that this creator was talking about the subject at hand very much implied a whole bunch of things. It had arguments like, he doesn't even like her, he's a pedophile, he gaslights her, he's too controlling and possessive, etc. So I think we should just go through these one by one. If a 17-year-old girl came in this door right now, sat down on the sofa right here, and started talking about her relationship with a boy in her class, and she started explaining or describing to me the way that Edward sometimes treats Bella, I would be alarmed. Edward is very controlling. Like, he is. But that's the whole beauty of this. It is fiction. As a person engaging in media, you're allowed to engage in media that you have no interest in experiencing in real life. Like, that's the beauty of it. You can look through someone else's eyes and live someone else's life for a little, test it out, have fun with it, and then you can close the book or click out of the video, X out the movie, whatever, and go back to living your normal life. Like, we have, oh my god, every fucking 3 months there is this exact argument like on like fan fiction and about what kind of fan fiction you consume and what that says about you as a person, and like what kind of fan fiction you desire, what you like, what you don't like. The media you consume has actually sometimes very little to say about what you like, who you are as a person. it shapes you. I don't think children should have access to just any kind of media. But then again, this isn't like a sexually explicit story at all. It's actually kind of the absolute opposite. It has subtext, absolutely, but it's very safe. I also really doubt that any audience member that reads Twilight sees the relationship between Edward and Bella and goes, I want that exact thing, and then in real life goes and seeks out that kind of relationship. It might, from some people's perspective, normalize a kind of controlling relationship, but let's have some media literacy. I know, online that's very hard to come by these days, but hopefully the people who are watching this and consuming this are not 13. And hey, welcome, I'm your big sibling. I only want the best for you. But I don't think that you, even as a 13-year-old, are engaging in Twilight in a way that idealizes toxic relationships, you know what I mean? There are teenage girls, absolutely, that fantasize about a boyfriend like Edward because he's perfect, essentially. And he's extremely safe. He's a very safe way to experience desire for a lot of people. Even to Bella, he's very controlled, he's very careful, respectful, sensitive, withdrawn. He's never aggressive or demanding or explicit in any way. It's all in subtext and it's all in you. Even when he's annoyed and alarmed and whatever, it's very rarely kind of taken out on Bella. One of the arguments was that Edward doesn't even like her. And this creator had taken lots and lots of examples of, especially the first couple of chapters, where every time Edward looks at her or talks to her, he's gripping the edge of the table and he's hissing at her and looks at her in revulsion and with disgust and these kinds of things. But let's look at the actual reality here. He's a fucking vampire planning to kill her. This is not just some boy in class. He's not a human being. He's a vampire in his head begging to suck the lifeblood out of her. That's the context of this. He's not looking at her in revulsion because he finds her revolting. He's looking at her with disgust because he's giving everything he has to not literally kill everyone in the room and then her and drag out her death to be really painful and slow so that he can enjoy her blood as long as possible. So does he even like her? I think he fucking does because he doesn't kill her. Oh my god. When it comes to Edward is controlling, yeah, he is. He is controlling, absolutely. There are very many points where he tells Bella what to do, he forbids her from doing things, from going places, from seeing people, specifically people that he believes to be a threat to her safety, and he also a lot of times makes choices for her, chooses things for her, leaves her because he believes that is what would be best for her, etc. And then obviously when he comes back, he has to do the whole thing of I had to just promise to myself to not ever make Bella do anything that she didn't want to do again, as that will just cause both of us excruciating pain. The thing about Bella, though, is that she keeps fighting back against his control. She doesn't just she isn't groomed into believing that he knows better than she is. She is continuously fighting this. And when he goes, you can't go there, you can't see Jacob, you can't do this, she goes, what are you going to do about it? You going to kidnap me? I'll find a fucking way. And that's not to say that, if you are being groomed, that's your own fault and you should fight back. That's not what I mean, obviously. I just mean to have the perspective that, this is a toxic relationship based on the fact that he's very controlling. Edward has a flaw. Sue him. His biggest flaw is that he is controlling, that he doesn't trust Bella to know what is best for her. That's his biggest flaw. And that's also what he needs to learn throughout the series. That's what he needs to learn in order to become, the final, love interest for Bella, He has to have this flaw in order for Jacob to be, an actual threat to him. Because Jacob can offer Bella something that he cannot, which is a lack of control. Also, people really enjoy characters that have flaws and that have things that they need to overcome. If Edward was just perfect the entire way through, you know what the argument would be? It would be that he's too fucking perfect and not real in any way. Also, if we're talking about him being controlling in a toxic way as a reason for why you shouldn't engage with Twilight at all, then I'm asking what the alternative is exactly. Like, should he then be absolutely flawless and boring, kind of just like a fucking wallpaper? I also think in the context of the series, he kind of is a bit justified in being as possessive as he is. Like, he is a vampire, and the love of his life, his mate, remember, vampires only mate once, okay, this is for life. His mate is a human being who's very prone to accidents and clumsiness and danger, and so sue him for being a bit fucking anxious and scared. Okay, if the love of my life was walking around being almost run over by trucks every other day, I would also be a bit fucking nervous. I would also want to, have my eyes on her at all fucking times. I would also, kind of feel compelled to make sure that even during the night, okay, even during the night, even when she's sleeping, that she is safe and fine and nothing is threatening her. And then especially when we move further on into the series, when there are actual threats on her life, people who actually hunt her down to try to kill her, I feel like he's a bit justified in being like, where is she? Let me have my eyes on my love. Do you disagree? I also think Edward is so fascinating because he's such a walking contradiction. He absolutely needs to keep Bella safe at all times, while also being acutely aware of the fact that he is probably the most dangerous thing to Bella. Like, he is what would most likely kill her. Also, this is quite like a little metaphor to like domestic violence and what kills women the most. Like, straight women need to be in relationship to the people that are most likely to be her demise, if you will. Terrifying thought. Don't think Stephanie did that on purpose, but here we are. Like, he needs to feed, Edward needs to feed, he needs blood, but also desperately needs to not be an evil person who kills people. Oh my god, I'm feeling so ill. Like, I can feel it in my chest and my throat and my head right now. He gaslights her is also a huge argument that people are making all the time. Him being gaslighting, first of all, I think people take these therapy words and fucking run with them. Marathon them. You don't know what that means, Trevor. You have no fucking clue what that means. You don't know. People mostly say this about the whole hospital situation that we just read, which is why I wanted to read the chapter first, so that you have some perspective and thought on this whole gaslighting situation. Because he obviously very much tries to change her memory, or at least convince her that she's remembering things wrong with the whole where he was standing when the accident happened. And then people use this very much as proof that he is abusive. But then again, let's bring this back to the context of the situation. Okay. Bella asks for the truth. He does not give her the truth. He denies it. He actually tells her off a little bit. He's very cold with her. He's not very nice about it. Is he doing that because he is an abusive partner that wants to isolate, undermine, and control Bella? Or, as I've written here, is he a lethal supernatural being having almost just revealed himself and vampire kind to most of the local community, and he's trying to save the situation? Which one is it? I'll give you 2 seconds. Ding, ding, ding. It's B. It's the second option. Okay? You need to think of this as the context of who he is, okay? He's a lethal fucking supernatural being. He's a vampire who will be murdered if he revealed to an entire local community that he is a vampire. Him and his family will be murdered by the Volturi if he reveals this. Also, he has a sick fascination and a beginning crush and love for the person that he most wants to kill. And so, even if he didn't step in, the accident would have happened, Bella would have bled out, and he wouldn't have been able to help himself, and he would have been drinking her blood. So all of this leads to just bad vibes, right? He also can't just run in the opposite direction, because he already, even in chapter 3, is beginning to very much feel for her. The tension between them is very strong, and that is weird. It is weird. But let's move on. It is weird that they love each other so quickly, but let's move on. Teen love, I don't know. So he doesn't even have the alternative of running away, because she will die then. He doesn't even think really about it. He just he springs to action, and then afterwards he has to really much deal with the consequences. And the consequences of just like pulling her aside and telling her the truth is that the entire mystery of the novel completely disappears. He reveals the truth of vampire kind to the probably the one person he should absolutely not tell that to. And so here we are. What's the option? Tell the truth or not tell the truth? If we're using this again as a reason to why you should not engage with Twilight because he's toxic and he's gaslighting and whatever, what is the suggested change of the story needed in order to make this a non-toxic relationship? Is it that he straight out in chapter 3 now goes, yeah, actually, you know what, I am a vampire and I really want to drink your blood, and if you died, that would actually really pain me because I think I might be falling in love with you. We wouldn't be staying. Like, we would not be continuing the novel. It's a story. The last point is a bit more complicated than the rest. Basically, a lot of people believe that Edward is creepy and disgusting because he is so much older than Bella. That he's basically a PDF file, if you will. This is going to be put on YouTube. So, sorry. Bit embarrassing language there, but we have to get around it. My instinct is to say that you're wrong and that you're delusional because he's a 17-year-old boy and he was changed when he was 17, and therefore he can't age past 17, and so his actions and his feelings reflect that of a 17-year-old boy. And because Bella's also 17 when they meet, there isn't really much of an age difference, so this is a moot point. However, I think this is where we again need to go back to the thoughtless writing rather than bad writing from Stephanie Meyer's point. I personally was always under the impression that because Edward was changed when he was 17, he cannot evolve emotionally, he cannot mature, he cannot, he will forever stay stagnant in a 17-year-old mind, body, and emotions, right? But when you start to think more deeply about this, there are some very glaringly obvious holes in this line of thinking. Canonically, vampires are unable to change. They are unable to change behavior or personality or even beliefs after they are transformed. Like that's the law. That's the rule. It is said right here. It's said by several characters throughout this series. This is when the question of like maturity comes into the conversation. Because what is maturity? Like, what is maturity? Just biological? Are we thinking just about like the prefrontal cortex kind of coming together and making you able to make informed decisions? Or are we talking about maturity and like experience-wise? Lots of people are talked about as like being so mature for their age because of the stuff that they've experienced, or the way that they're able to make decisions, or the way that they're able to have complex, not so black and white thinking about topics or problems or decisions or choices, whatever. Maturity isn't just biological, right? Our maturity is the experiences we have and the things that we see and think and feel, and how often we do that and how we can put that in context to other things. Edward has, unfortunately, 100 years, well, a little less than 100 years of experience over Bella. He has seen things and experienced things, been a part of things, lived in ways that Bella has absolutely not done, even though Bella is described to be mature for her age. He has multiple degrees, he has lived all around the country, he's traveled the world, he knows several instruments, has PhDs, for God's sake. Oh my god. It's just a very, very loud little, very, very loud machine out there, a very loud vehicle driving past. It's okay, my love, you can lie down again. Waking up the cat. She's so cute. Anyway. And all of these are learnt after transformation. And so the brain is very clearly able to change and mold because that's where learning happens. Like, learning happens and the brain is visibly different. And like the elasticity of the brain like changes. And clearly this is multiple in a vampire as well, as it's very normal for vampires to have multiple degrees and know multiple things and have, lots of knowledge and know lots of instruments and topics. And so I think this is more of an issue with the way that Stephanie has decided to structure the story. She has written an easy absolute, vampires cannot change, instead of spending a lot of time on like world building and setting up the rules of this world, she continues to contradict herself again, like we spoke about last time. So it is a bit more complicated than just like he is 17, because he has 100 years more experiences than Bella has, and still he keeps making choices that a 17-year-old boy would. And then this came to my attention through the video of the creator that I watched, which this is the point that I actually really agreed with him. He keeps damning himself a little bit, and we see this especially through Midnight Sun, because in Midnight Sun you see everything from his perspective. You're inside his head, so you can actually hear the way that he speaks about the other peers at the school, and even how he speaks about Bella and how he thinks of her. He speaks of the other students and Bella multiple times as children. These children around me. Like, he keeps elevating himself above them as if he is so much older, has so much more experience, which he has, but I mean, again. And this actually does really deeply affect the relationship dynamic between Edward and Bella, because Bella is always cradled. She's held like a child to him, like he cradles her, and even in certain sections, he holds her like a child, like it's literally written out, like a child. Bad. Also, this is a point in the Britannia novel. It's in the shelves of here. The Britannia novel that I actually found really interesting when I read it. I think this whole age gap relationship dynamic situation is actually just like, oh, I need to sneeze, hold on. I think actually this relationship dynamic is Stephanie's fantasy coming through in her writing, rather than like a conscious choice of hers. It's old conservative extreme gender roles, very often present in very highly religious groups and settings. And so when Steph is writing Edward, she's very much attracted to him while inventing him. And so her fantasies around the role of man and woman, and the role of, protector and the protected, will be written subconsciously into it, especially because she says multiple times that she is not aware of, what her text means. Like, she writes with no consciousness to her subconscious at all, which is problematic. When she's inventing him, she's bound to make him into like her ideal version of the like male lead, which in this case has weird gender roles, I think, because she has weird gender roles. But that's just my opinion. And so yeah, what's the conclusion of that? What's the conclusion? Should you feel weird about the age gap thing? Is there an age gap? I think honestly that's up to each person to decide for themselves. If you feel very weird reading Twilight or engaging with Twilight because it's just a bit uncomfortable to you, you're so within your right to just put that away and like not talk about that any further. But I do think, the reason for why I'm having this podcast situation in the first place is because I find all of these things very interesting. I find them fascinating to talk about and to dissect. And I don't think everything is as black and white as a lot of people might suggest. And if you're with me, please follow along. Hopefully the fourth episode will be posted quite soon. The fourth episode will actually tackle Stephanie Meyer. Yeah, we'll talk about her background, we'll talk about her community, where she grew up, what her family life is like, just her journey in more detail, from, conscious to now. What is she doing right now? Is she writing more? What kind of stories? Where is she living? How does that affect the story? Whatever. And we'll also tackle the fourth chapter of Twilight as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, please check out the description for any resources there as well. If you've stayed for this long, thank you. And please just stay for a tiny, tiny bit longer. With the ongoing genocide in Gaza, it is very important for us who are standing on the outside witnessing all of this to understand the power that we hold, especially financial power that we hold. at least on the sides of TikTok and social media that I'm on, a lot of people are fundraising for their escapes out of Gaza. It is extremely expensive to cross the border. I think it's something ridiculous between $5,000 and $8,000 for each person, depending on, I think, risk and age and gender, perhaps. I don't know. And then that doesn't even begin to fund people's like living, food and shelter once they get out of Gaza. And so with all of this, I am adding in a fundraiser in the description. I have been fundraising for this girl called Maid. They've experienced a lot of hardship. They're a big family. They've already lost several members, and their fundraiser isn't getting a lot of traction right now. So please, if you wanted to donate or tip the Moth Club for our work with Twilight Revisited, please rethink your donation and donate to Maid's fundraiser instead. That would be much nicer. Thank you so much. And then please also subscribe both on YouTube and on Substack in order to be notified when the next episode will be posted as well. Thank you so much, guys. The link to the fundraiser is in the Substack description box because I can't post links on YouTube. So that's where you'll find that. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you guys soon. Do you have anything to add, Junie? She's fast asleep on my lap. So she will not be adding to this, actually. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it lots. See you next time. Bye!